All right, Shalom, welcome to. I'm gonna start off by giving all praises, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Kragadash, the most apostles and the millstone who will teach well. Peace, plus the Akim, pushing the truth from the globe, Shalom. I just want to get this chapter real quick, this is for motivation or for exhortation. I just want to get this lesson in, to edify the elect, the hopeful elect, and I just want to hop right into it. This is Ecclesiasticus, also known as Sirach, chapter 2. And I'm going to start at verse 1. My son, if thou come to serve the Lord, prepare thy soul for temptation. So once you come into this truth, you're going to, receive all kinds of, afflictions, whether that be, something from your job, something from your job, family problems, family problems, that's one of the main things. But and also persecution. Persecution is a heavy one as well. And these are the things that you're gonna be suffering. These are some of the things that you're gonna be suffering. And I just want to expound on that. This is my son, if thou come to serve the Lord, prepare thy soul for temptation. So you will be tried in this truth, day in and day out, 24/7. You're gonna receive, lots of hell, in this truth, and you're gonna have to overcome through the scriptures only, through the scriptures and through faith, So just be prepared, to come by those trials, And verse 2, it says, set thy heart aright and constantly endure, and make not haste in time of trouble. Right. It says, set thy heart aright and constantly endure, and make not haste in time of trouble. So when these things do come upon you, revert right back to the scriptures. Think of a scripture, that most suits you for that specific hell, and it will indeed, soothe you. It will help you. Just study the scriptures, search the scriptures, and you will be satisfied, through the precepts. Just like the scripture says in Isaiah, through the precepts. Let me get that scripture real quick just to back it up. This is Isaiah chapter 29. Salaki is Psalm 119 and 104. Through thy precepts I get understanding. Therefore I hate every false way. And the point is, it says through thy precepts I get understanding, right? So you're going to have pitfalls in this truth, and things are not going to go your way as well. Things are not going to go your way, but that doesn't mean to fall out, and it doesn't mean to immediately revert back to the world. That means to keep pushing, because that's what the scripture is telling you. Constantly endure and make not haste in time of trouble. So don't quickly, go back into the world just because you're going through hell. It says, cleave unto him and depart not away, that thou, Salakia, that thou mayest be increased at thy last end. So at that last end of that hell, you're going to get through it. So it's best to, cleave unto Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai in that time of trouble. It's all plain and simple. It's all plain and simple. You just gotta, you gotta take the meat off the bones. You know what I'm saying. And I'm reading verse 4. It says, whatsoever is brought upon thee, take cheerfully, and be patient when thou art changed to a low estate. you know. And I'm reading this one more time. It said, whatsoever is brought upon thee, take cheerfully and be patient when thou art changed to a low estate. Right. So, you know, um, so just, whenever you're in a low estate at that moment, take it cheerfully. Like it says in Peter's, take that hell cheerfully and you will eventually get through it. The Lord doesn't put you in a trial that you don't, that's not fit for you. He puts you in a position, for a moment of time, like Job, he was put in a specific hell for a appointed time, and he eventually got through it at the end. So it's best to wait patiently for Yahweh Hashem Yahushua to get you through that situation, and you will get through it. That's the whole playing field. And this is verse 5. For gold is tried in the fire, and acceptable men in the furnace of adversity. Right, so this is for gold is tried in the fire, and acceptable men in the furnace of adversity. So the elect is going to be purified, during what the elect is getting purified now, through the hells and the trials, so, Yahweh Hashem Yahushua is eventually going to, get them through that the hell, whatever hell that they're facing, they're going to get through it at the end. It's not hard. It's not nothing's too hard for Yahweh Hashem Yahushua. Nothing at all. Nothing at all is too hard for Yahweh Hashem Yahushua. Yahushua is always in control. That's in Isaiah, the 45th chapter. In 7th verse, it says, "I the Lord, I the Lord do all these things." In verse 6 it says, "Believe in Him, and He will help thee. Order thy way aright and trust in Him." Right, So Yahweh Hashem Yahushua is ordering the elect to believe in Him, and He will help thee order thy way aright and trust in Him. So He's wanting you to believe and trust in Him only. Don't trust in Esau. Don't trust in the government. Don't trust in DJ Trump. Don't trust in the so-called white man. For relief. In troubling times. Because they don't have the truth. The only truth here is that Great Millstone. The leaders that teach the word. The 100% truth, the 100% truth word. And it says, "Ye that fear the Lord, wait for His mercy, and go not aside lest ye fall." So wait for Yahweh Hashem Yahushua's mercy and go not aside lest ye fall. So the Lord is telling you not to fall. He's telling you to stay up, and continue fighting for what you need, and what you want, and that should be the kingdom, and that should be Yahweh Hashem Yahushua, and in the glory that you're going to be conjoined with them with, that you're going to be receiving, like it says in the book of Romans, we're going to be joint heirs with Yahweh Hashem Yahushua. That should be our number one glory. That should be our number one goal. All right, and I'm gonna read verse 10, verse 9, verse 8. Salakia. "Ye that fear the Lord, believe in Him, and your reward shall not fail. Ye that fear the Lord, hope for good, and for everlasting joy and mercy. Look at the generations of old and see, did ever any trust in the Lord and was confounded, or did any abide in His fear and was forsaken? Or whom did He despise, or whom did He ever despise that called upon Him? For the Lord is full of compassion and long suffering, and very pitiful, and forgiveth sins and saveth in time of affliction." So Yahweh Hashem Yahushua want you to go to the scriptures, look at the generations of old, look at Job, look at your ancestors, look at your forefathers, Salaki, look at your forefathers, and look at them, and look at how they dealt with the situation. It's all very simple. So you know, and for example, Job went through hell. He caught a lot of hell. Job, you know, uh, he went through pain, physical pain, and he went through spiritual pain. So Yahweh Hashem Yahushai, you know, you know, dealt with him on a physical level. So just put yourself in that situation and comfort yourself. Because once you do that, it gives you hope. It gives you a certain level of push, motivation, exhortation, to keep pushing. All right, I'm gonna read verse 12. It says, "Woe be to fearful hearts and faint hands, and the sinner that goeth two ways." So continue. It says, "Woe meaning destruction be to fearful hearts and faint hands, and to the sinner that goeth two ways." Right. So you got to be fearful of Yahweh Hashem Yahushua. Don't look back. Don't look back like Lot's wife did. And in the sin that go two ways. So whenever you're going through a trial, make sure you put on the whole armor of Yahweh Hashem Yahushua. Don't let Satan take you out because you did something. You know what I'm saying? Proverbs 24 and 13 says, Proverbs 24 and 13 says, he that falleth get it back up seven times, and get it back up. Worth paraphrasing. And and once you do that, you can get up another time, and you can end up, getting better at whatever you're going through, because Yahweh Hashem Yahushua is with you at that moment. Yahweh Hashem Yahushua can make you stronger, and I'm gonna read verse 13. It says, "Woe unto him that is faint-hearted, for he believeth not, therefore shall he not be defended." It says, woe unto him that is faint-hearted, for he believeth not, therefore shall he not be defended. Right. So Yahweh Hashem Yahushua will fight for you if you are going his way, if you're following his way, not the other way around. If you're fearful hearted and you're fearful hearted, you're not going to be defended at all. So and that goes for me as well. I can apply this to myself. It says, "Woe unto you that have lost patience, and what will ye do when the Lord shall visit you?" So don't lose patience, because if you lose patience and end up falling out of the truth, you'll end up being destroyed, because that's what it means when it says, "And what will you do when the Lord shall visit you?" Because he may take you out. He may take you out the truth, or he may kill you. He may put you to death. You never know what might happen, what Yahweh might do. So it's best to remember Yahweh Hashem Yahushua, and remember the words that he commanded you to do, and apply them. And it says, "They that fear the Lord will not disobey his word, and they that love him will keep his ways." They that fear the Lord will not disobey his word, and they that love him will keep his ways. So I'm gonna read this one more time. It says, "They that fear the Lord will not disobey His word, and they that love Him will keep His ways." You know, So those individuals, in the truth, in this ministry, that the fear Yahweh Shema Shah are not going to disobey His word, and they that love Him will keep His ways. You know, So and that's what you want to be. That's what you want to do. Just like it speaks in James, you know. In James, it tells you, I'm gonna get that real quick. Be a doer of the word and not a hearer only. Salakia. I found it. It's James 1:22. But be ye doers of the word and not hearers only, but deceiving your own selves. For if any be a doer, for be a hearer of the word and not a doer, he is like unto a man beholding his natural face in a glass. For he beholding himself and goeth his way, and straightway forgetteth what manner of man he was. Right? You know. And I'm gonna keep reading. So just be a doer of the word, not here only. Don't be a hypocrite. Hypocrites are not suitable for the kingdom. Hypocrites will be found out, in a lot of days, who's for the Lord and who's not. Because, Yahweh Shema Shai will eventually put them to death. You don't want to be that individual. And it says, they that fear the Lord will seek that which is well pleasing unto him, and they that love him, it shall be filled with the law. It says, they that fear the Lord will seek that which is well pleasing unto him, and they that love him shall be filled with the law. They that fear the Lord will prepare their hearts and humble their souls in his sight, saying, we will fall into the hands of the Lord and not to the hands of men, for as his majesty is, so is his mercy. Right? So in a nutshell, Yahweh Hashem Shah is gonna meet you with that mercy if you fear Yahweh Hashem Shah and do as it commanded you to do, and have that faith and apply it in all your life, in its truth, before the coming of the day you have Hashem Shah, you know, and that's all. That's really commanded of you, to seek Yahweh Hashem Shah. Seeking Yahweh Hashem Shah is not hard to do, And with that, I just want to close out. I just want to hop right into this lesson, get into this lesson, and I just want to hop right into it. And I just want to give all praise, honor, and glory and praises to Yahweh Hashem Shah, and Shalom.